Let's come back to the UK then, and not going so well for certain French journalists. So let's put this on screen. This is Ernest Moret, who works for what's described in the mainstream press as a radical left-wing publication called Edition La Fabrique. And he was detained by British police, arriving at St Pancras station from Paris on Monday evening. He was coming to the UK to take part in the London Book Fair. He was alleged to be in possession of, or at least the police wanted to know if he was in possession of terrorist material or had engaged in any terrorist activity. He was stopped under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000 by counter-terrorism officers who demanded he disclose the passcodes to his phones and to his computer, and he was refused to do that. So he was eventually arrested on Tuesday. Now, what is Section 7, Schedule 7? Sorry, let's have a look. So this was, I've just chosen this review of the operation of Schedule 7 that the Home Office published in 2012 because it describes it. So let's bring it on screen. It says Section 7 of the Terrorism Act is a national security port and border power. It enables an examining officer to stop, search, question, and detain a person traveling through a port, airport, or the border area. This is to determine whether that person is or has been involved in the commission, preparation, or instigation of acts of terrorism. Stopping an individual does not necessarily mean that the officer believes the person is a terrorist. An examining officer may require a person to answer questions or provide certain documents. If a person refuses to cooperate with the examination, they can be detained by the examining officer for a maximum of 9 hours. Most examinations, over 97%, last under an hour. Fewer than 3 people in every 10,000 are examined as they pass through UK borders. An examining officer may also search a person or anything they have with them. A failure to comply with requests made by the examining officer may be considered an offence under the Act. So anyway, he was held for 6 hours eventually, and then was released on bail. Now, this, of course, is very similar to what happened to Vanessa Bailey the last time she came to the UK. She was also held for 6 hours, and they also attempted to get access to phones and so on. But in this case, he refused to give any information. And of course, you have no right to remain silent under those circumstances in this country. Here's a statement from the publication itself on the arrest of Ernest Moret. The police officer claimed that Ernest had participated in demonstrations in France as a justification for this act. So in other words, he was stopped by the anti-terrorism police because he took part in the pension demonstrations in France. And they go on to say this is a quite remarkably inappropriate statement for a police officer to make, and which seems to clearly indicate complicity between French and British authorities in the matter. And that is certainly the question that many people are asking today. Why was he arrested on the British side? Why wasn't he arrested in France? If there was a concern that this person was some kind of terrorist or involved in terrorism in any way. I think that's a very good question that does need to be answered.
Yeah, but of course the collusion between the police and the security services, both sides of the border, is absolute, unless, of course, you're going to come in as an illegal immigrant, in which case they seem unable to secure the borders. So we've got another angle to examine this one on, Mike.
Let's come back to Andrew Bridgen. And Full Fact was attacking him this morning. Andrew Bridgen MP shared a document supposedly showing a list of communist rules for revolution written in 1919. This list has been circulating for more than half a century, but is widely been labelled a hoax. Okay, so let's have a look at the Bridgen tweet. Here it is. These rules were written in 1919. He said, over 100 years later, people have intrinsically not changed that much. We should all read and study this. It must be resisted at all costs. Now, Bridgen hasn't said that this is factual, or he hasn't said exactly where it came from. He's just said that it was published, which it was. Now, Full Fact, of course, is correct to say that this is fake in the sense that it's not related to communism as such. But I think it's worthwhile just looking at the text of this and considering what was the point that Andrew Bridgen was actually trying to make here. So let's bring this back on screen and we'll zoom in on this. So Communist Rules for Revolution, it says in May 1919 at Dusseldorf, Germany, Allied forces captured a very significant document, Communist Rules for Revolution, as you read these rules now 50 years later, keep in mind what you're reading and hearing every day via news media. And so number A says, corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness. B, get control of all means of publicity, thereby, 1, get people's minds off their government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books, and plays and other trivialities. Divide the people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. Destroy the people's faith in their natural leaders by holding the latter up for contempt, ridicule, and so on. Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and ruthlessly as possible. By encouraging governmental extravagance, destroy the credit, produce fear of inflation with rising prices and general discontent. Promote unnecessary strikes in vital industries, encourage civil disorders, and foster a lenient and soft attitude on the part of government towards such disorders. And finally, number 7, by specious argument, cause the breakdown of old moral values, honesty and sobriety. And number C then, cause registration of all firearms in some pretext with a view to confiscating them and leaving the population hapless. So I'm going to say, I don't think it matters the genuineness of this document. I think what matters is the content of this document. And so full fact by attacking Andrew Bridgen in this way is trying to distract from the content of this document. And I think his point is absolutely valid. People should be reading this document, considering what it says, comparing it to what's going on in the world today, and really having a serious discussion
asking how
about
that's
it.
come about.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, are we back to Debbie?
Yes, by all means. All eyes on the WHO. And, referring back to Andrew Bridgen, I would just like to say that if anybody doesn't know, Andrew Bridgen was speaking at, I believe it was a select committee yesterday on pandemic preparedness and the WHO. And if anybody wants to go and watch that, it's on his YouTube and it's also on his Twitter. But it was very, very powerful. And I was very impressed. But that said, we're all looking at the WHO and the Pandemic Preparedness Treaty. And of course, Mark Anderson and James Roguski have been doing a lot of reporting. I interviewed James Roguski with regards to that. And we've also featured the UK petition. But whilst we're looking at the WHO, let's just cast our eyes back to the United Nations. It doesn't take long before you suddenly see that the New American only a few days ago published this article, which says that the United Nations seeks to strengthen global governance during emergencies, which always sounds rather suspicious. When you read on, it says the United Nations released a policy brief last month proposing an emergency platform or set of protocols that would automatically activated in response to global shocks, such as future pandemic, an economic crisis, or even an outer space event that creates severe worldwide disruptions. Now, this whole announcement was made from, and maybe throw it back to Brian in a minute for this, because the policy document that it came from is called Our Common Agenda. And this is a document that's entitled Strengthening the International Response to Complex Global Shocks, an Emergency Platform. So this common agenda was only published in March 2023, and it's basically discussing how to deal with global shocks. So what actually constitutes a global shock? I had a little bit more of a look into this document, and I've just snatched a couple of slides to show you that the diagram on the left is the complex global shocks. So those include major climatic events, future pandemic risks, events involving biological agents, disruption to global flows of goods or people, cyberspace digital connectivity disruption, major event in outer space, an unforeseen black swan event. So those are the complex global shocks that perhaps we're all to prepare for. And then on the right, you can see the principles of the emergency platform and what the emergency platform actually does. So you can see there that it's meant to strengthen coordination, be flexible and agile, inclusive and multi-stakeholder. And this document is very in depth. And when I found, there's another diagram that I'll highlight too, which talks about the impact. So what is the impact of global shocks on, of course, the sustainable development goals? It all comes back to those. And here we've got, and I'm sorry they're not quite pasted in order, but you've got 17 points there of shocks, and some of them, just to highlight, you can freeze the screen and maybe look at them in more depths, but some of them are zero hunger, quality education, gender equality, reduced inequalities, climate action, life on land, peace, justice, strong institutions. So these are all the things that are being highlighted in this document. And I just wanted people to know that the United Nations quite clearly are preparing for every eventuality, including pandemics. So whilst many people have their eyes quite rightly on the WHO, perhaps we might like to just keep our eyes firmly on the UN as well. Which brings me back nicely to home. Are we going back to the new accessory, perhaps you might want to call it? I always thought, as a nurse, an air ring was a device that people with piles sometimes sat on. But no, apparently not. The new air ring is the latest must-have. Now, shockingly, I showed this to a few young people and they were wowed by it. They thought it was amazing. It looked pretty. It's called Elegant, and it's meant to deliver purified air to the wearer. I mean, honestly, I've got a couple of screenshots of it, but I think perhaps it might be best just to go straight to a little video clip that I've got, which will tell you all you need to know about the air ring and what's coming up, what we can buy now. Oh, it works for 8 hours, by the way. Have a little look.
A-Ring, a wearable air purifier designed to generate a pure and refreshing atmosphere around the user's face. Graceful lines of the air ring naturally extend the human body with unseen usability, comfort, and style. Within the elegant air ring are advanced and powerful modules, a sufficient battery array, and silent air turbine. The generated airstream is filtered by HEPA, sterilized by UV radiation, and cleaned by carbon filters. The precisely delivered purified airflow forms a sterile perimeter around the user's face. The air ring is self-guiding and easy to operate. One touch and a snap is enough to disconnect the magnetic mask and firmly connect it with the main compartment in a single motion. The air ring folds and slides off. Simply slide on an unfolded air ring and you're ready for action. The Snap magnetic mask is for extra protection. Air ring is ready to go. Different masks and screens are available. The full face screen mask maximizes your personal protection. Extremely adaptive, reliable, and user-friendly. Air ring fits with any outfit for any situation. Ready for action, open for communication, free to smile. Suitable for fitness, always with you so you can enjoy breathing. Uncover adventure. Air ring, designed with joy.
Debbie, I just that must be a joke. Tell me it's a joke.
It's not. It's not. There is a website. There's a full website with all of the specifications on it. Unless it's just a really, really good hoax, and the whole website's a good hoax. But I mean, I'll open it up for debate. Perhaps someone can find out. Maybe I've been scammed.
Well, the device troubles me because anybody who plays, say, the violin or viola is going to have a real trouble with their design. So I think it's got some limitations.
Oh, forget any woodwind instrument. Come on.
Yeah, all right. We'll add a few more.